Hello and welcome to the channel. My name is Annalisa and today I'm going to be telling you about my top 10 best books of the year. And you might be wondering, what captain? What captain is on her shirt there? Why, Captain Marvel, of course. I might be slightly crazy about Captain Marvel and have a really big poster of her on my bedroom door. So this list is totally subjective, but I do have categories, so they are the book that did this the most. So I did put a little bit of reasoning behind why I picked these ones. Other rules include that I read them for the first time this year, but they didn't have to come out this year. So to start off the list, the one that jumped out at me first that I had to put on this was How to Be a Normal Person by TJ Klune. And the category for this one is Best Representation of Myself. So someone who had multiple really big things in common with me that I hadn't seen before or hadn't seen combined into one character before. And in this case, this is a gay romance between a gray sexual and a sex-repulsed asexual, and the main character, gray asexual, is also neurodivergent in the autism, ADHD, OCD sort of conglomeration of neurodivergencies that have a lot of similar overlapping symptoms. And that book made me feel a lot more lovable and a lot more seen and was very comforting. Then we have Moon Called by Patricia Briggs, and this one gets a category of introducing me to a new genre, because for a long time all of the paranormal romances that I saw were ones that were very alpha male, a lot of toxic masculinity, and very female sub male dom oriented erotica, all of which I find extremely off-putting. But I really like the idea of werewolves and also vampires, and I also like fantasy romance, which wasn't a thing I knew until this year, but we'll get back to that in a bit. But this series I started even though I wasn't particularly attracted to the genre because it is set in my city and I was reading it for a collab. But I found out through reading it that not all paranormal stories are like that, and so now I'm a lot more open to reading those types of books and filtering through the subdom erotica and finding the actual good ones. The reason that a lot of it has that is because it's quite popular and a lot of people do enjoy that. But this whole series has very few sex scenes, the romance is super slow burn, and the author actually takes great care to handle the whole alpha werewolf trope with care and rejects toxic masculinity and rejects men having to get whatever they want or they blow up. Plus the main character is a lady mechanic who is a total badass, so I'm very happy that I read that and it introduced me to a whole new genre that I now feel more comfortable trying out. The next book is Witchwood, which is the sequel to Furthermore by Tahereh Mafi, and this for me was this year's best addition to a rare-ish subgenre of fantasy, which is wacky fairylands slash fantasy worlds in which there are a bunch of different magic systems kind of cohabitating, and it tends to feature characters going on a quest traveling through a world that has all these different things at different areas and different creatures and different magical rules that usually defy physics and make plays on words real. And I find them super creative and fascinating and a stretch for the brain. And the series that made me fall in love with this was the Fairyland series by Catherine Valente, but I found it quite hard to find other magical systems like that. Howl's Moving Castle has a little bit of that within the castle and the magic that they use, but their whole world is relatively sensible, so there's not nearly as much of it. So that's why I picked Witchwood as one of the best books for my year. Then we have The Rise of Kyoshi by F.C. Yee. And this book is a book that did something I didn't think could be done. It captured the world and also the vibe of Avatar: The Last Airbender, an animated TV show. And to be able to do that when it seemed like so much of what went into that show was partially the voice acting, but also the animation style itself in a totally non-visual, non-audio format, plus being a different author who is adapting the work of other people, I didn't think that could be done, so I avoided reading this book for a while because I thought it would be super disappointing to try to go into that world again and have it not be the same. But FCE did an amazing job. I did not think anyone could make me love Kyoshi more, and I didn't think that anyone, not the original creators, could add to that world in such a true and satisfying way. Then we have one category that has 2 books in it, and that is books that gave me more joy than it would make sense based on their parts. Like, I like a bunch of the elements, but it gave me more joy than would be explained by just those elements. So there's some kind of indefinable, most likely very personal thing that makes me super enjoy these books, even though I know that they're not like the most amazing books in the world. They just make me super happy. And those are Trail of Lightning by Rebecca Roanhorse and The Good Luck Girls by Charlotte Nicole Davis. Trail of Lightning is about a monster hunter who suddenly has to deal with a lot more monsters than there used to be in the world because the world has kind of ended and been reborn, where there's been a worldwide flood, where everywhere except this woman's ancestral lands of Dinata and some more parts of Utah have flooded, and also monsters and spirits and gods have come to walk the earth, and a lot of them are not friendly, and she has to save her people from them. With no support from her people, she is a lone monster hunter who gets bullied into a sidekick, and I just adore her, but I can't really express all the reasons why. And The Good Luck Girls is about 5 teenage girls who escaped being sex trafficked to go on a Wild West style outlaw rampage as they flee the system that had been trafficking them and met out some justice to some Johns and run from some very nasty ghosts. And Wild West stories are not my favorite. I do like outlaw stories more than non-outlaw stories, and there is a Robin Hood sort of feel to them of being righteous outlaws, and I definitely like the smash the patriarchy, smash slavery vibes, as well as the individual characters, but I still couldn't tell you why I enjoyed this book so very much. Then a lot of the books that I read are in series, and that is my preference. So I also have the category of Best Standalone, and for that it is Elotsae, which I loved the cover of, the asexual representation of, the platonic relationships of, the indigenous representation of, and also the world building and the magic system and the really cool raising ghosts thing, and also that it is teenage characters told in a very middle grade way, and that's one of my favorite things. So it had to go on the list of best books of 2020. Then I also really love to reread books, and I found some great new books to reread this year. So my top new rereads are Radiance by Grace Draven and Kiss Quotient by Helen Hoang. These are both romances. One of them was almost my first foray into fantasy romance and was a way that I figured out I like that. I've known for a long time that I really like Beauty and the Beast retellings, but I didn't know that there was like a genre that those fit into, which is fantasy romance. And actually a lot of retellings that I like are that, because a lot of the fairy tales I like are fantasy romances, like Snow White and Sleeping Beauty and Beauty and the Beast and Cinderella. So this year I discovered that I liked other stories that were fantasy romance, because this is not a Beauty and the Beast retelling. It's just about, although it is about 2 people who don't like the way the other one looks because they are different species, still very humanoid species, and how they fall in love through having a friendship. And friends to lovers is my favorite, especially when it is in the arranged marriage trope as well. So they come to respect each other and take care of each other because they're trying to make the best of a situation in which they've been forced together, and then they fall in love through that, is my favorite thing. And this book has lots of platonic cuddling in the friendship phase, and also lots of just trying to take care of another person because you can, not because you're going to gain anything from it or because you're sexually attracted to them. And from there I also discovered that I love this author as a whole, who writes lots of fantasy romances with lots of different types of tropes. But Radiance remains my favorite of those, and I have reread it a bunch of times. And then Kiss Quotient I fell in love with because of the representation, but also because of the both of them not feeling good enough for the other person trope that I also apparently really enjoy, probably because I have low self-esteem, so I like 2 people with that problem getting it together eventually. But also the whole autism aspect that made me feel seen and lovable, much like How to Be a Normal Person did, and the way that the autistic person's love interest treated her and didn't treat her autism like it was a big deal, and showed how not hard it is to make accommodations for that, was really comforting. And so I ended up rereading that quite a few times. And then the last book is for best magical creatures, because I really do love books that involve lots of magical creatures and also really interesting ones. And then I have some favorite magical creatures that anything that they are in I adore. So like dragons, although this particular book doesn't have those, it has some of my other favorite magical creatures and also some that I hardly ever see, as well as being new and different interpretations of those creatures. And so for that, A Song Below Water definitely had to go on this list. So those are my personal top 10 best books of the year. I'd love to know what your best books have been this year, and if you have any like subcategories of particular types of favorites that you've recently found. If you feel like leaving an emoji, I think there is a lady superhero one, but if not, how about a star emoji for Captain Marvel's star on her uniform? Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!